I don't remember anymore when it happened, I asked Professor Gelman to explain this statement more properly. I asked him, is this assumption that religion ultimately is the joyful relationship between man and God, is this indeed the truth about the meaning of religion? I don't know if it is yes or no. I have my doubts on one side. To argue that religion, what HaKadosh Baruch Hu really wants from us, is to come joyfully, free to Him, without any demands. In other words, we create that relationship and He will respond, but He doesn't respond by way of demands. He doesn't respond by way of mitzvot. He responds by showing love to us because we show love to Him. Now this may be too easy said. Once more, I haven't read the paper itself, so I'm not exactly sure what it means. But when I asked Professor Gelman to explain this more carefully, he did not. And when I pushed him, he did not. I'm not sure exactly what happened. Perhaps he didn't understand me, or I didn't understand him, and I need to discuss this more carefully with him. But what this professor was saying is, I don't know if I should say a half deal, yes or no, is basically what the Chabad HaLevot was saying. Ultimately, religion cannot exist out of halachic demands. It must be the free interaction between man and God and man. Which, by the way, I could argue in favor of when we speak about the concept of a covenant, of a brit. We always speak about brit. Torah is brit. It is very strange, because brit means that two people get into a relationship out their personal freedom of will. They are free to say, okay, let's create this relationship. Like two people who are getting married. Nobody's forced into this. It's not a matter of coercion. It is a brit. Strangely enough, within the Jewish tradition, over the years, what happened is that the brit was now translated in a form of religious coercion. Like the concept of Har Kikikit, HaKadosh Baruch Hu putting the mountain on top of Am Yisrael and telling them, or you do this, or Sham Kevuratam, Kevuratchem. There is your kever, there you will die, there you will be buried. Which obviously is the highest form of religious coercion you can think of. Remember the Gemara there with Purim later on, we shall not go into this now. But what the Chabad HaLevot is saying, and what this professor is saying, and I now for a moment take this to be true. I question that if the whole principle is correct. I'm not sure that this is what real religion is all about. But in case we are prepared to buy into this, and we are saying, real religion, real religiosity can only come about when there is absolutely nowhere any demand being made by God, at least not in the form of any kind of law, not in the form of any coercion. That's the ideal religion. That's how it should be. And who lived that life? Avram, Yitzchak and Yaakov. True, they had one or two mitzvot, Brit Milah, and a few interesting, and a few more cases, Kita Nashe, but it was the minimum of the minimum. More was not there. So how do you come to God? You come to God in your own freedom. You possibly decide how to do that. You create your, if you want, your own religion, your way of coming to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And perhaps, as Heschel would call it, obviously in a different framework, not all what you need to do, but what you need to do is to have this relationship with Him, for example, by holy deeds. By holy deeds. Not that the holy deeds are anywhere forced on you, but it is because you have, in your own way, created a religious way of encountering HaKadosh Baruch Hu by, for example, making every deed into a holy deed. That could be the greatest form of religiosity. It could be the greatest form of, let's say, a religious experience which perhaps we are all looking for. Which means an halachic free kind of Judaism. I don't think you can call it anymore Judaism, because obviously Judaism means by definition halacha, and it means commandments, but now we are already speaking in phraseology and using words perhaps in a different way than we normally do, but I want to make that point. Coercion can never be an expression of love. Here, I do not understand Professor Gelman at all. Because he was arguing, and I was trying to argue against him, but it didn't work. I was asking him, when he came up with this beautiful idea, which I'm deeply impressed with, and that is that the chosen peopleness, the chosen peoplehood of the Jewish people, is an expression of love. It is a kind of a paradigm by which HaKadosh Baruch Hu shows his love to mankind by involving somebody or a nation so much by giving them these mitzvot. And that is the ultimate example of love between HaKadosh Baruch Hu on one side and man on the other side, or better, HaKadosh Baruch Hu's love for mankind. And he shows this via the Jewish people. That is part of what I do not understand about this paper. Because to me this is a contradiction in terms. Love can't be coercion. And if it can be coercion, then I don't understand why you only have the Jewish people, but then you can take the whole of mankind and make them into Jews and having them to live in according to the halachic principles which were given at Sinai. Here I cannot follow him, and I hope one day to discuss this more with him. But before I give you an opportunity to respond, what then is the Torah, which I believe was given at Sinai? And I believe that I'm obligated to live by it. What I'm saying is, and I mentioned this a few weeks ago also I think, is that the Torah is a emergency measure once things got out of hand. Saying it differently, the moment that people were no longer able to have the experience of Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, and by the way this is exactly what the Chobot HaLevavot says, and it was what we call today Yiridat HaTorot, things went down the hill. People couldn't get themselves anymore into this spiritual condition. They were not able anymore to relate to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Then an emergency situation came about, a chirum came about, and what was it? What can you do about it? Then HaKadosh Baruch Hu walked in and said, well, you know, you are no longer capable of coming to me in this free love, which the Chobot HaLevavot and this Professor Stevens is speaking about. What can I do to help this situation out? Which is all b'di'evet. It is all something which is not lechatechila, it is not an a priori condition. I will help you by giving you the halachic system by way of the mitzvot. If you ask me, is this the ideal situation in which I want you to serve me? The answer is no. But I now realize one thing, speaking in human terms, is that since you are no longer on the level of Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, you're not able to get yourself there, I need to jump in and do something now as an emergency act, and that is, I'm coming in with this Torah of mine. Which explains why it was not given to Abraham, Yitzchak and Yaakov, because the ideal religion is the religion of Avraham Avinu. I call that, for those who have been here before, last year, the year before, I call that, again for the lack of a better word, Jews by choice. It is a choice. That's what it is. You choose for it, or you don't choose for it. Avraham Avinu is the first Jew. He is a Jew by choice. He didn't have to create this relationship with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Nobody gave him a